What's happening? Well, I'm still working on the dresser, so I figured I would just show you where we're at. Ta-da, I got it together. You can see I got the plywood on the bottom. I have the panels on the sides. I already put some oil on them. I think they look really great. And you can see that I have the rabbet cut for the back, plywood. I have this piece on the top, this plywood. These center petitions are just held in with screws on the top. And you can see that I have this doohickey down there, glued and screwed. And then if you look at this one over here, it's just screwed to it on the side. The piece in the middle is actually the top that was rejected. I think it looks pretty good. Definitely looks good, actually. The way that I put the center petition is I made a piece of plywood and I put it here, held it against it, screwed it, and then I just did the same thing to the top. Now you probably notice I have these dividers in here. When I first started making dividers, frames at school, they taught me to mortise this out, make that, put that in there, make the entire frame, and then fit the frame into the case. And I have to tell you what, that was really pretty much a struggle for me because none of my cases are all that square. And sliding them in and out or coming from the back and then having to make a stop on the front of it is just a lot of time. And I feel like the front of my case is just, it's more difficult to make it look like what I want. So what I do now is basically, I go to the table saw with the dado set, right? And then I run it this way, I spin the thing around, and I cut it that way with a stop on it, you know what I mean? So this thing is centered, right? And I don't care how wide the tongue is because I basically do the same thing for the tongue. I go to the table saw, I cut one side and then flip it over, cut the other side. So everything is flush and centered. So it goes together like that right there. Now, if you're doing this and what happens is if this isn't flush, right? And you notice that it's not flush on one side, it's because the tongue on your tenon is too wide and it's making these things push out. All right, so just do yourself a favor. You can see I get a little bit of space right in there because I don't need it to be super tight. I just need it to be able to go inside of my case. And that thing is tight as a bullfrog's ass right there, all right? Because I was able to get really great measurements and just cut the pieces accurately to fit them. So I put these ones in, then I clamped this thing over with that piece of plywood I was telling you and screwed it down. And those, this one and that one are like the exact same. When it came to doing these dividers right here, look. Yeah, I know I don't have a camera, guys, so just deal with me. All right, you see? I have a stop on them on both sides. And it goes in just the way it came out. Just like so. Tappity tap tap, hang on. Okie doke. When I was putting these petitions in, I wasn't super accurate, so they're not the exact same. But that's okay because these right here are 2 inches wide. And when you think it's easy doing it with two hands. Try doing this stuff with one hand. It's all right. I can do it. Let's get that. Get that bad boy stuff. That's loud, huh? See? See what's going on? I'm gonna drive that in. Drive it in like this here. Until it's flush. You see that? Beautiful, right? Now I'm gonna glue this. I'll probably put a little screw in it just for the heck of it. I'm not gonna glue any of this because I want this to be able to move, right? But that's essentially it. You can see, right? See how nice and square that is? See how nice and flush it is? And I don't have to do anything. And trust me, once I get all this stuff together, when I fit the drawer, the last thing I'll do is I'll hit this with a shoulder plane to make sure everything is nice and even so I don't struggle with the, fitting my drawer. And look, you can say I bobbled with the stupid router, but that's okay. It's who gives a crap? You're never gonna see that stuff. So if it bounced around, it's less, know, it's less of a risk doing it this way. So essentially it's good for me to be able to get all the guts of this thing done without having to worry about the face of it at all, because what I want to do now is, after I get all these pieces put in, is I need to try to interpret the rest of my material to make the most of the drawer fronts right here. I'm still stuck with a little sapwood. Now, you'll probably notice on the top right here, you can see that it's flat sawn and it has that sapwood in it. I almost put that in the middle, and I talked about it on the last video right here, but you see the flat sawn on that divider, petition rather, and that petition right there? I felt like if I had left that, you know, sapwood there as the final product, it would really take away from all the striping in the main frame. So what I did was I cut this piece off. It was set like this. Now you can see that it's quartered right there. So once I have all the guts of this piece put together, I'm gonna cut this stuff, and I'm gonna make sure that this is the face that you're gonna see on all my petitions. So it's gonna look really great because the whole front of it will be quarter sawn. And I think that is some really beautiful looking stuff. But again, like I was telling you in the last video, it's difficult to like maintain what you want in this piece depending on what the material is giving you. So don't be afraid to change your mind and cut the pieces and orient them totally different if you need to, because ultimately all we really want is the front of this case or the front of your project or whatever it is that you're focusing on to be perfect, you know? Look, you can look at it. I resawed this bad boy and look at the size of it. But I'll show you, just, you know, I did this, what, 2 weeks ago? And hang on, let me get the other one. There it is. Woo, that stuff is awesome. Oh, don't worry about that piece. Here we go. Ooh, that almost went down too. All right, so you get what I'm saying? You guys picking up what I'm putting down? Look at those panels. My God, they're unbelievable. They're like a bitch too to keep flat, but what do you expect? It's 16 inches wide. It's gonna move. So as long as I can just creep up on that thing as best I can and then put a batten on the back of it, it's gonna stay flat long term. It's not like I just made them and tried to throw them in there, right? So this is gonna be the focal point of the whole thing. I hope they fit. Watch me flip out if this thing doesn't fit in there. Hey, all right, see what I mean? That's gonna be dope. And here are the drawer fronts. Right here, see what I mean? So these are all the drawer fronts. So I really need to do the best I can to try to interpret this material to bring the most of it out. Unfortunately, you know, this sapwood is right in the middle of it, so I may have to cut these and then find more pieces of quarter sawn inside here to put on my dividers. Not that I like to do that, because honestly, I always like to cut the piece of wood out of the, I like to cut the dividers out of the same piece that's going to be for the drawer front. So who knows, I might be cutting that stuff up and making more panels. I have no idea. So, hey, there's a little insight on how I put the whole thing together, how I made my dividers, how I cut the stupid grooves, and how I just kind of stick built it as I go instead of trying to make perfect frames and slide them in and out like I did way back on the toolbox one. You know what I mean? All right, well, yeah, hopefully you picked up a little info and this video was helpful. If not, what do you want from me?